Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of Podcast Pasta. That's a podcast that's like pasta, not the podcast that's about pasta. As always, I'm your host, Mike, and today I am joined with Remington Blake. You are a 2D digital artist. You are known for some of your fan art as well as, I believe you have like an OC original like comic series. Most of your work can be found on Twitter. I'm not sure if you really post anywhere else. Remington, how are you doing today?
Not too bad, Mike. Thank you for having me on today, man. Yeah, I do have an original series. I actually mainly post on Instagram. My Twitter has just only recently been taking off, but yeah, man. Thank you so much for having me today.
Well, thank you for being on. Now, Remington, I know I gave you a very brief introduction, but as I always ask with all my guests, if you could kind of expand on that for me and explain in your own words what you do and what motivates the work that you put out.
Yeah, absolutely. So I recently started an original comic. I was doing purely fan art for years. I want to say like four, 4 or 5 years. But just this past June of 2025, I I recently put out a new series called The Mirage. That's the name of the title. It mainly centers on kind of a little uh, autobiographical events, like with myself and my family. I am married. I do have two small kids. I did expand on it. I have expanded on it since then to feature more original characters. It it never was purely realistic. Like it does have a bit of ridiculousness to it, especially when it comes to the retail aspects. Because I've worked in retail for almost a decade now. But yeah, it's going very well, in my opinion. I have a lot of fun with it. I haven't run out of steam with it yet, which is kind of a big deal for me. I do. I have been posting weekly comics. I am on a very brief hiatus, but yeah, that's what I've been working on, and it's a lot of fun.
Now, before kind of delving into your work, I'm always kind of curious because, I think I say this every episode I bring artists on, but, especially with a lot of online art, you get people from very different backgrounds. A lot of people that, either studied art in a collegiate sense or some that pursued it as pure of a hobbyist. So I guess kind of fill in a bit of the background for yourself. Like, how did you get into art? How did you study it in any like professional sense, or did you just purely pursue this of your own accord?
That's a really good question, man. I started. I I think the earliest that I can remember that I started making art, I was 3 years old. I would just draw little blocks, and called them robots. I, my parents have like hundreds, probably pages of my renditions of Spider-Man when the Tobey Maguire movie came out when I was a kid. But yeah, I've just been drawing since then. When I was in college, between the years 2014, almost all the way to 2018, I didn't do as much art at all. But yeah, I'm almost completely self-taught. I do study with the techniques online. I've seen, I've had books recommended to me that I've taken a look at. But yeah, it is almost completely self-taught, and yeah, it's just my skills gotten a lot better since then. So,
Now I'm kind of curious about the main influence for your work because I'm sure I'm not the only one that's drawn the comparison between some of your art and I can't remember how you say his name, Speederoo, I think. He does like some online animations as well as like art himself. And I guess I'm drawing the comparison because your most recent piece was, I think, Spider-Man fighting Morgan, right? And one of his big animations was like I think like MVC 2 animation or something like that. So I don't want to make any assumptions and say that you're inspired by Speederoo, but I guess just in general talk about your like what has influenced your current style.
oh, dude, that is the highest compliment. I 100%. I love that. I don't know anybody who's heard of Speederoo who hasn't been influenced by their artwork. I love Speederoo's art. I did take a big idea from his Marvel versus Capcom animation. I did see that one as well. I mostly get compared to Brian Lee O'Malley's Scott Pilgrim style. Actually, a lot of people like to make the comparison for that, and I do take a lot of inspiration from. I call him the master. I've always loved his art. The amount of emotion that he can put in his stories. That's that's definitely what I've tried to chase for so long. But yeah, I love Speederoo. Uh, I've been a big fan for a while now. But yeah, I reading comics is a huge pastime of mine. I haven't been fully caught up with anything Marvel's done. I did just recently get into the Absolute Batman series, but yeah, I'm trying to get better when it comes to like action sequences because that does play a part in my own comics. But when it comes to the stylization of like my proportions for my characters and such, I think probably the heaviest influence would be from Brian Lee O'Malley or even Speederoo as well. Yeah, I love the way they use color. I love the shapes because I've learned from them that just everything is just shapes, and it's definitely um, been a focus in my own artwork. Yeah, thank you for saying that, man. That was really nice.
Hmm. Well, you're welcome. No, what was I gonna say? Oh, I guess with a lot of artists, it's always about like constantly evolving your work. Taking what you've learned and adapting it into like what you put out. So I guess I'm kind of curious, like, what was the most recent development in your own technique that that has led you to where you currently are with in regards to your work?
Yeah, it. I think the newest thing that I found that I've settled into, like style wise, is even just my usage of color. For a long time, I was shading with dark hues of purple and using only like bright yellow or even white to render that lighting. But I've decided to explore more with just even the same colors, like lighter versions of the same colors that I'm using, like on the actual characters, and it's paid off really, really well. I mean, I know there's been some discourse about using like the purples and the yellows for rendering. I don't really have an opinion on that because I've done it. I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but I have in my own art been a lot more just relieved with how my stuff turns out in this new technique that I've tried when it comes to using color.
Hmm. Well, what discourse, if you don't mind me asking?
I remembered reading a while back that some I don't know some people they didn't recommend using yellow for lighting and purple for shading. I I never saw a problem with it, but yeah, I guess some people might think it's not as professional. But
Huh.
it was a while back. I don't know. I've
No,
only
that's
recently explored
interesting
other.
because the closest comparison I could think of, because again, I'm more of like a film TV guy, is that I know there was a lot of people that give more modern movies flack for sometimes having what's it called? Yeah, like color grading using like orange and blue, and it gives it like a very like kind of obvious, sometimes weird look. Um,
Oh
but
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I didn't know about the whole shading thing.
Yeah, it's just one of those, but yeah, no, I never saw an issue with it. In my older artwork, you can definitely tell that that's what I did, and while I myself don't like to look at my old artwork as much, I was really proud of it at the time, so I don't see anything wrong with artists using that technique at all.
So going to your original comic series, I think at least from what I could gauge, you posted kind of individual pages of it, but at least again from what I could find, I couldn't find any like more complete arcs of it. I guess I'm kind of curious how like down the line you'll see yourself expanding that series.
I absolutely do have plans to expand on it. I would like to publish. I've written out like longer story arcs um, for the series. I don't know if you're familiar with Jay Stevens' comic. It was really short run, but it was called Jet Cat Adventures. I grew up reading that, and that one centered on a little superhero girl called Jet Cat. But the really cool thing about it was just basically anything could happen in the comic series. Her best friend was King Tut, and he spent his nights breaking out of the museums. Her other best friend was like a punk rocker who had a zombie butler. Her own father was a space hero. So it really tied into the idea that yeah, anything could happen. And I thought it was done a really, really beautiful way that you never thought like, oh, this doesn't make sense. Like this genre doesn't fit here, whatever. It's because the series itself was just so wacky that that it all made sense. It all came together perfectly, and that is definitely something that I wanted to do with my original comic series. Like it did start with just comics about my family and I, and me complaining about my experiences in retail. But since then, I've capitalized on a lot of different ideas. Like I have a story incoming about a sci-fi hero he's he was just a regular astronaut from Earth. He's gone into space, and he met other alien life, and they basically give him the key to salvation, like to doubling our resources, to saving the Earth, like everything that's wrong with with the like climate control and everything like that. And he's really excited to bring it back to Earth, but now there's a dome over the Earth, and they're not letting him in because like the big health insurance companies are okay with people not living forever and stuff like that. So in the old PBS show Between the Lions, there was a regular small little story called Cliffhanger,
I
the guy who was
love
always hanging
Cliffhanger.
off the cliff.
I'm sorry, I always just remember like the stupid theme song, like Cliffhanger, hanging
Yeah,
from my
he,
yeah.
yeah, exactly. And he almost always gets off that cliff, but he ends up right back on it. So that's one of the story arcs that I have planned out for the Mirage, that I'm really excited to show off. But yeah, it'd be really great to be able to publish, even if I have to self-publish. I've done digital releases of like my smaller comics before. When I was doing fan art, I remember I I have like a really small comic from Elden Ring, from one of the quest lines in Elden Ring, that I released on Gumroad a while back, and that one did pretty well. But I've never physically printed anything, and that's definitely something I would like to do one day.
Um. So I guess to just to double check this, are you a full time artist or do you do something on the side to help supplement like your creative works?
I work full time in retail. Actually, I'm a supervisor at uh, at a retail store. I Yeah, I haven't been able to realize my dream of being a full time artist quite yet, but that is the goal.
No, no, fair enough. I was just curious. So you're still pulling from your current experiences for the comic, I would imagine.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
Ah, cool, cool. So I guess with I because I remember one of your more recent comics was, or I don't know if it was recent. I can't remember what the exact dating was. But it was kind of like a one shot, and it was like I don't know. You could explain the context for me because again, I kind of like dropped in your work like in the middle of it. but it's like this alien kid, which I assume like in the comic is like your character's kid, right? And he's having like this dream about like being at your funeral or something. And it ends with like a really sweet moment where like he gets up late and like he hugs, which again, I'm not. I don't know if it's necessarily you as like the character in the comic, but he hugs like his like the father figure or something.
Yeah. So in my comic series, the character that's inspired by my real son, we call him Bug. We've always called him that in real life, so that's why I gave him the little antennas. But yeah, we had a really long time where he was kind of struggling with the concept of death, and I didn't know exactly how to incorporate it into my comic idea. So I came up with this villain character who's the Grim Reaper of the universe that I've made. I've named him Countdown. He just looks like a skull who or a skeleton guy who uses a vape, and on his chest it's a countdown timer. But he's popped in and out of my series. Only done like really small like cameos where he's basically been following my character and my character's son around. But yeah, that is also a build up for a story that I have where we explore the concept of death and grief. And yeah, we my son is kind of prone to nightmares sometimes, and usually I'm up gaming at night. My wife works overnights at her job, so my kids can come and yeah, we've had times where he's come out and I've had to calm him down a little bit. But yeah, I definitely wanted to draw that on one of my pages.
No, I was just gonna say because yeah, it seemed like very like something very real that was like, oh man, um, like it was drawing from some real experience. I just wanted to kind of confirm that for me. But I mean, I get this. I sympathize with it. I was just, like even now as like an adult, I still struggle with death in many ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, I mean, congrats on the success you've had so far. I God, I always hate like kind of going into this line of questioning because it's like asking a farmer, "Hey, you interested in cooking?" I get like the skill sets don't fully transfer over, but I know a lot of people that like start with these like original comic series that one way they see one way that they want to kind of expand it is through like via animation. Like, obviously indie animation in YouTube is like really been blowing up over the years. So I guess I'm kind of curious, is that something that you would see yourself doing if like hypothetically, you have like the money and resources for it? Is that something that you would want to pursue, or would you want to just keep this solely as just like a comic series that you have it now?
Uh, I would love it if it turned out to be something animation worthy, and if I had the money and resources, I yeah, for sure, I would start a studio for people to be able to do that. I know my own limitations, and animation is not one of my strong suits at all. I, it is something that I do still plan on practicing more. Uh, but yeah, it would be really cool to see it, even on my TV, just to see how I've drawn my family and I, or even these characters that I've created. Um, I would love to put voice actors and give them work and stuff. That would be really cool. I myself, I love making comics. That's what I've always done ever since I was a little kid, and I still love doing it to this day. I've just been crazy about writing stories or even sharing my own experiences. Like, like I have these things throughout my day that I love. I get really excited about them, and like I have the ability to share that with my own skill set. But to have them animated would be sublime. That'd be really cool to see. And yeah, I'm a huge believer in the indie animation field. Like it would be really cool to see them take something of mine and translate it.
I guess for your own like art and anything, like let's say like in the process of translating it into animation, is there any like do you think that there's any specific considerations that would have to be taken into account? Because I know like sometimes it's one thing to draw a character as a still image because you could sometimes go a bit crazier with their design because you're not like constantly redrawing it frame by frame versus, sometimes designs have to be like simplified for animation so that way it, yeah, again, translates uh, with the animation. Is there anything that you would have to do for your art to like to translate it into animation or any considerations?
Um, that's a really interesting question. I'm not 100% sure. I feel one of my own like criticisms of myself is that I always feel like my character design is lacking. But mostly because I work with the consideration that I'm going to be drawing these characters in each panel, so they're usually on the more simplified side already. But when it comes to animation, yeah, I I would not blame. Uh, I wouldn't even blame myself for using less rendering because I know that's the majority of what I spend my time on for my art is rendering everything to make it look clearer. I I've been working on drawing my backgrounds. I've always uh, you know I haven't put nearly as much of an emphasis on drawing my backgrounds as I do my characters, but to be a comic artist, that is definitely something that I feel I have to work on. So for it to be animated, um, yeah, that would also be something that I would need to work on for sure. The character design aspect, I don't think that I have any designs that would be too much of a struggle to translate into animation. But yeah, no, that's definitely something I'll think about more. That's a really interesting question.
No, it's just because I remember like way back in the day, I read like some Naruto, like how they would come out with the individual like volumes for series, and they have like they usually start with like a forward from God, I can't remember who does Naruto. I don't know if you could help me out.
Oh man, no,
Because it's not Oda. Oda's One Piece, but I cannot remember for the
yeah,
life of me who does Naruto. But anyways, he was talking about like how originally in Naruto's design, his headband was actually goggles, but he eventually had to like kind of switch to the away from the goggles because they were like too complicated to like consistently draw for each panel. So he just made like a simple headband. And I don't know. I
okay,
always thought that was kind of interesting how you had to kind of keep those considerations like in mind. I guess even in with like a lot of digital art nowadays with the even with the tools that we have now, it's still like kind of important to. And granted, maybe when Naruto was first like conceptualized, he was doing it like a traditional pen to paper, but even then. Um, but I guess where was I going to go with this next line of questioning? Oh, um, I guess kind of talking more about like the potential of translating your work into animation. In terms of like let's say casting for voice talent, are there any voices that you imagine for some of your characters, like your main OC, or even like some of the side characters that you would like just love to have like let's say a certain voice actor voice this character, like basically fan cast your own series, I guess.
yeah. Um, that's a good question too. I can't say I've thought about it too much. I always imagined that if my own comics got like dubbed, that I would just do it myself with my wife and my kids. Even some of my friends who heavily inspire the characters in it as well. But as for like celebrities, I honestly couldn't even tell you. I definitely want Danny DeVito in there, but yeah, I don't even know where I would put him right now. I I'm in this constant process of just creating new characters and just popping them in there. So yeah, that I definitely make room for him. some of the other really talented voice actors out there. But yeah,
Um,
I'll definitely think on
oh,
that one.
sorry. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying, yeah, I'll definitely think about that one more. That's a good question.
Cool, cool. So we're kind of near the midway point of my episode, of this episode here, and we're doing like kind of a section that I kind of have asked in other episodes that I'm always curious to get people's opinions on. That being like a 2D or oh my god, I was gonna say 2D animator. It is early for me,
That's
but
okay.
being a 2D artist, 2D independent artist working on like Twitter and stuff like that, I guess I'm kind of curious. Are there any kind of like criticisms of the art scene that that you have? Well, basically,
Um.
I'm asking for like your hot take.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's cool that you asked that because there has been something that I've been thinking about. I think I'm my hot take is probably that we should always, like, as artists, be refining our craft, and that doesn't sound too bad right now, but I have seen a lot of some of my own friends, and I've mentioned this to them that like they're totally okay with the techniques that they have, their um, their own consistency and stuff like that, because once you get to a certain level of skill with drawing like specific type of comics, you get better at it and you're able to do it more quickly, and so they're really focused on productivity. But I know that I'd like to see them also work on like studying, new techniques, and just growing. Just I like that my art doesn't look the same as even a few months ago. And obviously artists can settle into their own style and stuff. I know I kind of have as well, but it'd be cool to just see growth from everybody. I feel like as artists we're supposed to constantly be learning and getting better. That's my hot take. Of course, I don't judge anybody for staying the same, and I think it's pretty impressive when they do. But yeah, it's also really cool to see when people grow, and I'd like to see that more.
Yeah, that's always. Yeah, I don't know because I always wonder how mindful, because part of me thinks that like if you pursue something long enough that even just by the natural process of doing it you'll like become better at it, right? But
Yeah,
there's another part of me that thinks like how mindful does improvement have to be? Like how much do you, because you're right, it is kind of easy to just do something bad and not even think about it, especially if you're not like aiming to improve it. So I wonder how like how direct you have to be at like improving a skill set, or is it just something that just naturally being in the field, like you'll gain some improvement without even really like realizing it.
yeah. We definitely get better. I always tell people too that just draw every day. Like if your goal is to be an artist, just draw every day. Like eventually you're going to be at a place where you're not fully content. I don't know that anybody can be, but where you're a lot happier with your skill. And it happens all the time. Like, and I don't believe that it's ever too late to start. If that's something that you want to do, if you want to be an artist, like just draw every day. You'll get a lot better. And I think it's like steering a massive ship, like a ship on the sea. Like if you move a little bit, like there's sometimes where I'm in the middle of drawing, I'm like, oh, I saw a time lapse of another artist doing it like this. Like, let me try that real quick. And then if it does look really, really great, that's definitely something that I'm gonna try again, you know? And eventually I'll find myself doing that a lot, like or every time, stuff like that. So yeah, it doesn't have to be like a huge change. It's even as simple as, oh, let me try this new thing real quick. Like just really small. If I don't like it, I can always just take it off.
Um, so I know outside of also like your OC comic series, you occasionally do like fan art of like various things. Mainly, I've noticed like Marvel and Marvel. You did like I said the MVC piece recently. I know that artists sometimes struggle with like trying to balance, like if they do both fan art and like original content, they kind of struggle between like picking which to do, because like fan art obviously draws in more of an audience, but like your passion is really also in like your original content, because that's like of your own creation. So I guess for yourself, how do you kind of balance, doing that type of work, doing both fan art and original content?
That is something that I have struggled with. Absolutely. So for a long time, the comics are still up on my Twitter, but I created a spider sona after the release of the second Spider Verse movie, the Across the Spider Verse movie in June of what's that, 2023, I believe. Um, I created a spider sona, and I made all kinds of like fan art designs just based on the universe that I created. I made Rhino, the super villain that we know as Rhino. I made him just like this really buffed out dude with a rhinoceros head, um, and like I had like this backstory in mind that most of Spider-Man's rogue gallery in this universe, they were just mutants, um, and and it that really took off. I think I was coasting at 7,000 followers on my Instagram for like 4 or 5 years, and then one day I jumped all the way up to 40,000, and it was really really great to see. But and I was doing that. I was doing it for a little over a year, where I was just making comics about that. Like my spider Sona, he he wasn't Peter Parker. I didn't give him a name. I drew him the same way that I always draw myself, with like the black curly hair and the glasses. I made it so that he was a new superhero that was gaining popularity. So he had his own PR manager, who was modeled after my wife. We called her Miss Slater, and eventually they started a romance that people really, really enjoyed. But yeah, a lot of the aspects of my series I made up completely on my own. And I remembered that once I was losing steam with it, I I wanted to make something more original, and I knew what it would cost. I knew that like people had mostly come for the Spider-Man content. Um, but I went to Web Comic Con last year, um, in Michigan. I was invited to go with my friend, A Slice of Alan. He's also a comic artist, but I went with him and his wife, and I got to meet a bunch of the web comic artists there, and it was a really really cool experience. I got to meet Shen Comics, even Beetle Moses was there, Sarah Scribbles, and it really inspired me because I had already been feeling like I wanted to make my own thing, um, and I really started visualizing my goals, weighing the pros and cons. Because if I had kept with the Marvel fan art, like, yeah, I would have gained a cool amount of notoriety online. But at the same time, I've always wanted to publish my stories. But what was the best case scenario? Like Marvel would have contacted me, and what? Like I don't think they would have, been like, here, we're gonna pay you a really sizable wage for you to just keep doing what you're doing. You could keep writing it completely on your own. You could keep illustrating it completely on your own. Uh, just keep doing what you're doing, but do it for us. And I didn't think that was realistic. So I eventually moved away from my Spider Son art. I love Spider Man a whole lot, and it has been garnering a lot of attention online. My Spidey fan art that I still draw, because I've drawn a good amount of it, like weekly, and I do like to post it. But yeah, my main focus is my original content. But yeah, I draw every day. So if I'm not feeling something, like I always have something to work on. I pick up commissions regularly. I try to stay really responsible with those by keeping up with the deadlines that I've set for myself. But on not even just on occasion, but regularly, I'll find myself being like, oh, I could work on whatever I want right now. I could work on my own original comics, or I could just draw fan art. And a lot of times, I'll just even draw Spider-Man. I have a post for next week that's going to actually be of Invincible because I've been watching the series and I've been a huge fan of the comics since I was 16. So, but yeah,
So I guess I'm kind of, because a lot of you have a Patreon, right? That I imagine, you know, I mean, I don't know necessarily like how much subscribership you have on Patreon and stuff like that, but I guess I'm kind of curious because again, I sometimes treat this platform as, let's say somebody that's a fan of you that wants to possibly, not only get to art, but also like potentially monetize it for themselves. Um, and again, this is only if you feel comfortable like talking about the breakdown of your Patreon, but I guess, with your Patreon, like how much of that funding goes, I guess, break down how much of that like money goes into directly funding like your next future work versus how much of it is just for like, basic maintenance of, certain things behind the scenes.
yeah, no, I have no problem answering that. So with my Patreon, I've actually seen like I want to say about a 30% increase in my monthly income. It's been really, really great. People have been super supportive. One of my buddies, he goes by Upper Mind Inc. He suggested it to me that I start, working on the exclusive content like that and offering it to my followers because he's been doing it for a long time. He actually has a sticker club, and that's something that I'm actually using my funds currently to get ready to start doing as well. That I would love to push out monthly stickers. Uh, I like making the designs. I've never done stickers. We tried it for a very small period of time during the COVID quarantine, but yeah, it's something that I would love to get back into and to really start doing seriously. But but yeah, it's been really, really great. People are super supportive. I have multiple tiers. The smallest tier, it's like a little $2 tip jar type deal where I don't necessarily have any exclusive content. It's just for people who would like to support. Um, then I have the $7 tier where people can read my comics on early access. Like because I work towards having a cushion of a couple weeks in advance. Sometimes it's fallen to just 1 week in advance, but I make sure that they get to see it first. Even right now, while I'm on hiatus for social media, I am still posting on my Patreon. The $10 tier that I have going is strictly for the not safe for work content. That's something that I've been doing. Well, I've always drawn it, but I've never shared it. Uh, but yeah, that's something that I guess people would like to see. And even though I'm pretty self conscious of it myself, like I'm already making the art anyway and just not sharing it. So it'd be cool to let people see it if that's what they want to do. But yeah, it does help me a whole lot with my bills. Um, yeah, like I said, I'm a father of two small kids. My wife does work. We just but we live in California and housing's not cheap. In fact, gas right now is just under $6 a gallon. So um, yeah, I do use a lot of the Patreon funds for just for helping out with bills. But yeah, I'm getting ready to start making stickers, so that'll be a lot of fun.
So you talked about earlier that went to recently Web Comic Con at Chicago, and I guess as somebody that is always kind of not critical, I guess over the years, like I guess especially in the modern digital age, I see less of a value in like modern conventions because back in the past, like I'm talking like 90s or whatever, like conventions were used to directly link up people with certain artists as well as like for merchandising and stuff like that. But in the modern day and age with the internet, you're just like a click away from like connecting with certain artists and stuff like that. But so I guess for you as somebody that potentially has more experience, like going to conventions and stuff like that, how's the experience been for you? Have you seen like a lot of benefit to growing your own audience with that?
Yeah, definitely. I wasn't too aware of the value of it myself. It was definitely something that I was always interested in experiencing. I had never gone to a convention before, like at all. I was invited to go, and so I ended up, taking a red eye flight all the way out there, and it was awesome. One thing that I've always really been happy with when it comes to being an artist in this digital age is the community. Getting to meet people. When I was a kid growing up, I wasn't allowed to talk to people online. That's a scary thing. But since I've been an adult, like, and I've been talking to more people, like it's really cool seeing that people have the same experiences or even similar experiences, and seeing what they can achieve. Like it makes my goals that much more uh, realistic. Like I know that I can do something. I've seen it done. uh, I've met a lot of my best friends just online, and seeing them table, or even meeting my old heroes from the Tumblr era, like meeting them at conventions was so unreal. It was so cool. I would love to table someday myself. I think it is really cool how convenient it is to reach out to people online for sure, but I would love to meet somebody in person. That way, I'm not just this this guy on the internet who complains on his story every so often uh, about some movie or anything. Like it'd be cool to meet people and shake their hand, and be like, oh yeah, I'm Remington Blake. Like I've been doing art forever. Uh, Another thing that I've always like kind of daydreamt about is like people seeing and recognizing my family just on how I draw us. Um, and yeah, I I loved the experience of going to the convention, Web Comic Con. It wasn't one of the bigger ones at all, for sure, um, but it was so cool. And we got to go to the after party afterwards, and I got to see these artists, just these people that I kind of revered, and just seeing them relax. And like we would have like drinks, and everybody was just talking. I was definitely on the shyer side. If anybody else saw me there, I didn't talk a whole lot, but I was just in awe the whole time. And it that was a really, I don't want to call it a humbling experience, but it definitely centered me for sure, because these weren't like these untouchable like gods that when I was a teenager on Tumblr that I never thought I was going to meet. Like these were real people, and I got to meet them, and they were just so chill and so nice. Like everybody was so nice. Um, and I know that for myself, I would I would like if another artist met me and felt the exact same way.
Yeah, really moving up in the world, and now you're on podcast Basta. So how the mighty have
Yeah,
fallen, I guess. No. So I guess uh, uh, in regards to like your community, I guess the general response to your work, and this I don't know if this is gonna have a real answer. I'm just throwing this out into the ether. Uh, but with people obviously engaging with your work, has there been like any just weird criticism that you've gotten about like your pieces or anything like that, or just any criticism in general that you would want to like just discuss that you've just thought, well, why did they say that? you know?
yeah, definitely. Um, I think once you get to a certain point, you get kind of a lot of criticisms. Yeah, I've had some really really strange things. There was one time somebody reached out to me on Instagram and would like message me every single day. And when I didn't respond right away, um, eventually I was like, oh, this is pretty strange. And then I was like, they're talking to me like a child. I said, how old are you? And they're like, "Oh, I'm 17." And I was like, "Yeah, we should not be interacting at all. Like, sorry." And then not even 2 months later, I got a message request from the same person. They said, "Guess who's 18 years old now?" And I'm like, "Oh
Oh,
man!" Like, I
jeez.
thought, yeah, I thought that was so weird. But um, I I've been trying to get back into it, but for a long time I stayed away from Reddit just because the most criticisms that I've ever gotten were on Reddit. Um, my art does okay there, numbers wise, but yeah, I feel like people can be so mean. I remember somebody said that all my characters suffer from same face syndrome because I do like to draw my characters, with just like dots for eyes, little line for the nose, and just simple face. But I've always liked that. But I remember people were saying that, and it definitely hurt my feelings. It did help me. It helped me for sure. I've changed up my game a lot. But but yeah, I've received some really weird uh, interactions and criticisms from people online. Definitely. One of the reasons that I lost steam with my Spider Sona comics, like aside from me wanting to move on to my own thing, was just how strict the Marvel fandom can be. Like they didn't want anything changed up at all. In one of my Spider Sona comics, the Incredible Hulk, instead of being like this superhero, he was just a huge uh, cancerous mass that had like one ginormous arm and one little arm. His face was like melting, and he was just like causing a rampage through the city. And he dies like in the same comic page. And I know a lot of people were really upset about that, and they let me know it for sure. You know, I just told them like, oh, like your favorite characters have their own stories that are written already. Like this is a Spider-Man comic. Like this is a Spider Sona comic. That's what it's about. But yeah, uh, people don't want anyone messing around with their heroes, and I get that. That's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't pay any mind to it. Isn't there like a weird thing with Spider-Man where it's like they hate the concept of him being like happily married with
Yeah, with
MJ or
Mary
something like
Jane.
that?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I don't, the writers for sure. I have heard really good things about this new Ultimate Spider-Man series. I'm not gonna lie, I do still have to get into it. I have seen some pages and it looks great. They do look happily married, and I think there's been a lot of positive feedback from that, which is cool. But yeah, people just want Peter Parker to struggle constantly. I think that's part of what makes him so relatable. But we could we could throw him a bone. He, I don't know. That's just my opinion on it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't take him as like a character of infinite suffering. He does get some
Yeah,
wins every now and then.
yeah, absolutely.
I don't know. He's not like a. Oh my god, am I getting the author right? He's not like a McCormick character or something. Oh my god, I don't know if that's the right
No, no, I think
author.
you are.
I am, yeah.
Oh wait, no, the Cormac McCarthy.
Yeah. Oh my god. No, I think I might be mistaking. I'm thinking like whoever wrote The Road, but I don't think that was
Yeah, yeah,
McCormick. Is
Cormac
it?
McCarthy. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
you're right. Yeah, no, absolutely. he, yeah, he's exactly as you said. He's not a character of just infinite suffering. In fact, he gets his wins, and that's why people love Spider-Man. But we don't have to necessarily always put him through it.
Um, but so that's interesting. Like, if you don't mind, kind of like going into like what were there any specific communities in Reddit that were giving you flack, or was it just like the Spider-Man one?
No, I don't even necessarily have a problem with the Spider-Man one. I posted a comic. It was received very, very well on Instagram. In fact, it put me at nearly 100,000 followers. I made it for my wife, and it was definitely inspired by Scott Pilgrim. It was about the both of us. We used to go clubbing at the bar regularly um, when we were brand new when we had just started dating, and so it was just kind of a fun little comic about our first kiss at the club, which it's not true. That's not how it happened, but I made a fun little story about it. And on Reddit, yeah, people were just not vibing with it at all. They said that it wasn't realistic, and or they're like, "Oh, this guy has never been to a club in his life," or just stuff like that. My wife's character in the comic, she didn't speak at all, and people had an issue with that. But I just, these weren't things that I thought about when I wrote it, and I shared it with her, and she loved it. I mean, and when I decided to share it on Reddit, people were just not vibing with it. They didn't understand the context, and they didn't like the art. They, yeah, they were just not happy with it, which is, it really discouraged me, and I didn't want to share it like ever again. But I ended up doing so on Instagram, and got a totally opposite reaction to it. So yeah, I stayed away from Reddit for a long time. I only recently got back on because my Spider-Man fan art was being shared, like reposted without my consent, and people were telling me. So I was like, oh, I guess I'll just get ahead of it and start posting on Reddit again. And that's worked out so far.
So I guess, um, how would I want to word this? Uh, so you've talked about like meeting up with other artists, also doing like web comics or like other just digital artists in general. And I always kind of like asking my guests this, but are there any outside of being on podcast pasta, thank you, are there any dream collaborations that you have, like any artists that you want to, that you see yourself wanting to work with in the future because you love their work or you think it would just be a fun experience overall?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I've always wanted to work with like really really big names like Kiana May. She put out um, the what is it called? The I really don't want to be a magic. Oh man, it's like I really don't want to be a magic uh, star princess or something. She put out two animatics recently, and they were so awesome. But I've always loved her art. Um, I I have a lot of mutual artist friends who they've got really really big ideas and big projects coming up. It's always really cool to be invited to be a part of those. I I would do anything for them. Like if they reached out to me and asked for like even a fan comic, like I would 100% be on it. Um, I work pretty frequently with a slice of Alan. I know I mentioned him earlier in the podcast. He's been one of my closest friends since 2020. He found me online, um, and we've hung out in person a couple times now. Uh, but yeah, he we collab pretty frequently, and I always have a lot of fun with that. I think to get noticed by Cyanide and Happiness would be really cool. Um, Even I know I mentioned him earlier, but Brian Lee O'Malley with Scott Pilgrim, like if he has any major projects in the future, like if he takes notice of me and asks me for anything, I would never say no. But yeah, just stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm wondering if Brian Lee O'Malley is doing anything because I know, God, I remember like while back ago he did like some bumpers for Adult Swim. I think. I know
Oh yeah.
recently there was a Scott Pilgrim game. I don't know if he actually did the art for that or what. Yeah, I'm curious if he is doing anything or if he's just coasting off Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah, he came out with a one-off book a few years after the last Scott Pilgrim. It was called Seconds. I don't know if he has something else in mind after that. I wouldn't be surprised. But yeah, it's uh, whatever he wants to do. If he sees me and thinks I might be okay for some, the right person for something, I'm on board 100%.
So, you talked about how, this isn't a full time thing for you. You also work in retail. And I'm kind of curious, the people that you work with at the retail store or whatever, do they also know that you're an artist, or is that something that you kind of just like keep separate? Because I would get it. I don't really talk about like that I do this to people in public because it's like, it's kind of weird. It's a little
Yeah.
weird.
No, they know. This is my third store at this company, but I think at my last store, I definitely kept it a lot closer to the chest. But at this store, they know. They even know that I'm at this interview with you today. I told them I was really really excited about it. But yeah, they've always been really supportive. I see my coworkers almost more than I see my own family. So we're pretty close. Um, and yeah, they've always been really supportive. It's uh, and I like telling people that I make art. It's pretty cool. They always want to see it, and I know it's not always what they imagine when I first tell them, like, oh yeah, I'm an artist. I make art. So, but yeah,
I mean, you keep it from away from the Patreon, I would imagine, because like
oh yeah,
the spicier content. But I get it. Yeah.
yeah,
No, that's very cool. That's very cool. Um, but I guess we are getting towards the end of the episode here. For all you have stayed so far to listen, thank you so much for joining us. Remington, if you want to shout out where people can find you, where people can find your work.
yeah. So I do post on Twitter regularly. It's Remington Blake 3. That's my handle on Twitter, or X if you call it that. And on Instagram, where I want to say that is where I'm most active. It's Remington Blake, but the O in Remington is a 0. And you'll see this same photo as my profile picture. But yeah, I'm very active on both of those, and of course on Patreon, so under the same handle. But yeah, thank you so much for having me, Mike. Thank you everyone for listening.
Well, thank you for being on the program. If you stay tuned for after the show for Waffles on the Side, where I fight some of my subscribers in a Waffle House. So stay tuned for that. Thank you.